Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. For those who don't know me, this is Akriti and today I'm going to be talking about my first period. Now when it comes to the first time that people get their period, everybody has a very different experience. The reason why I want to share my experience is because there's still a lot of stigma and shame attached to periods and talking about periods. So this video is my way of conveying that periods are the most normal thing in the world and it is totally okay to talk about them. The second reason is because my first experience was very horrible, and for anyone going through the same thing, anyone who's feeling very vulnerable and not comforted, I hope that this video feels like a virtual hug to you. So let's dive in. When I got my first period, I was 10 years old. I was in class 4th and we were coming back from some place. I was on a train and then we got down from the train and my mother saw that there was stain on my pants, and we thought that we'll reach and then see what it is. So when we got back home, my mother told me to check my pants where I had gotten the stain from, and she asked, and then we realized that it was blood. So she asked me if I had gotten hurt somewhere, but I couldn't feel pain. So I looked at my thighs, I checked everywhere, but there was no wound, there was no cut. And then she asked me to check my underpants, and that is when I opened my underpants and I was horrified. I was like, oh my god, why am I bleeding? Am I going to die? Because it just wouldn't stop and I couldn't see a source of injury that the blood was coming out from. And then obviously my mom knew that it was my first period, so she told me that it was okay. She tried to console me, and then I was taught how to wear a pad, but I had like 1,000 questions swarming in my mind, like what is happening to me, why and how. And then she said that it's going to happen every month, and I was like, I'd faint with all this information. I'm not ready to go through this yet. And then she said that it is not unique to you and all girls go through this. And that was the first time I remember feeling like, oh my god, why am I not a boy? So like I said, I had already traveled that day, so I was already physically exhausted, and then there was a lot of mental exhaustion as well from all of this information and my body feeling alien to me. I was scared, I was feeling vulnerable, I didn't know what to do, I just wanted to make it stop. And little did I know that the worst part was not yet over. There was apparently a puja in my home where all of my family members had come, like every single member of my extended family. So my mom came upstairs and told me that since there's a religious function going on, I was not supposed to go down. And I asked her why, and she just said, no, you just can't. You just rest because you're having your period. But I wanted to go down because, all of my family members were there and I wanted to be a part of it, but nobody allowed me to go down. And it just didn't make sense to me. I was told that you are not allowed to enter religious places or participate in religious ceremonies while you're on your period, and that wasn't self-explanatory. Of course it didn't make sense to me. Everybody was down there participating in a puja and I was alone in my room crying pathetically on the bed and bleeding, for God's sake. I hated that day. I hated every single thing about it. I started to hate the puja, I started to hate the pad, I started hating periods in general. And slowly I realized that this was not all. This thing coming out of my vagina, it was a curse for me back then. Because I couldn't enter the kitchen, I was told not to touch the utensils, I was told not to sit on the fresh bed sheets, I was told no matter what, I had to wash my hair on the 3rd day of my period. I was told not to touch achar and a lot of things. I don't even remember all those. Even this is not it. There was a relative who was staying with us back then, and she stopped me from going to school for the first 1 week of my period. And I protested, of course, but in the end, I just sulked on my bed, cried all day long. I was also going through a lot of bodily changes, so I was losing a lot of hair. It was just all very, very bad. It all made me feel like periods are a curse, and that is the worst thing that could ever happen to a girl. So like I said, I was in class 4th and I think I was the first of my friends to get my period. But slowly a lot of other girls in my class started getting their period, and it was such a hush hush topic. People would go and whisper in their friends' ear, did you get it too? And we would be very careful not to speak about it in front of boys. We would make sure to sneak our pads in our skirts pockets and hiding it under our notebooks while taking it to the washroom, because what if they saw and made fun? And what would we tell them, that we have our periods? I mean, that is crazy. Since I was little, I followed all the unjustified rituals that were thrown in my face, because one, I thought that they're adults and they're right about things, they know more than me. And the second thing was, everybody used to, sush about it and not talk about it openly. So I thought it must be a bad thing. I mean, why are people hiding it if it's not? I remember this one incident that stuck by me. So a lot of ladies were sitting at my home, and one of them asked my mother, has she got a period yet? My mother said, yeah, she has. And then she's like, you need to make her stop wearing those shorts now, because she's a woman now, she's not a girl anymore. And I was so confused. I didn't know how to react to that, because I mean, how are these two things related? Then onwards, every time that my period came, I would not enter the kitchen, I would not touch anything related to the puja room or anything. I would not go to the temple. I would wash my hair every third day. I would make sure to keep my utensils separated. And then one day, I was on my period and I forgot I was on my period, and I entered the kitchen because I was way too thirsty, and I drank the water. And then suddenly I realized, oh my god, I'm on my period, I'm not supposed to be here. But then it made sense. I mean, I am standing here, I am okay, and I am on my period. So I realized that adults can be wrong too, because there was no harm. I was totally all right. I checked and everything was okay. I was standing there in the kitchen on my period and nothing went wrong. So that was the first time I felt like something is fishy here. After a while, I started asking questions. Why do I have to wash my hair on the third day? And how could, I just touch something and possibly make it impure? How does that make sense? Why am I not allowed to enter the kitchen? What would happen if I were bleeding from some other place? You would allow me, right? How is bleeding from my vagina any different? And I never got the answers, because there are no answers to these questions. Now, of course, I'm an adult and I do everything that I would do on a normal day. I do not follow any superstitions. I just cannot. And I am never again gonna let any misogynist, any auntie, any other person make me hate my own body for something this pure and natural. I am not going to be treated like an untouchable. I feel sorry for my younger self, because when I first got my period, I had no idea about it. I didn't know what it was, and I started to hate it for a while. But I am making this video so that any person who's watching this knows that there is nothing shameful about periods. If you are a youngster watching this and you know someone who's going to get their first period, or a person who has got their first period, I hope that you'll talk to them and make them realize that it is okay, it is normal, even if their parents do not take the initiative of talking to them. It is very important that we, as educated, aware people, take all steps that we can to destigmatize periods and make it an easier process for children. I just want you to know that periods are not impure. You are just bleeding, quite literally. There is nothing impure about it. I wish schools had a better participation in teaching children not just about the biological process about menstruation, but also taking a part in normalizing periods. Just taking girls to a separate classroom and telling them the do's and don'ts is not enough. I hope from the bottom of my heart that no other girl has to go through what I did. I hope that periods are made manageable and normal for every child. And I hope that we raise our voice against all these superstitions and stop talking in a hush hush voice, make noise, talk about periods because they are normal, and it is important that we bring our attention to this cause because a lot of people are suffering. I know it's already very painful, it takes a toll on your mental and physical health. We do not want people adding to the pain. So when you know a girl who's on her period, you get her chocolates, teddy bears, flowers, food, whatever it makes to get her to be happy. Your lectures on Izzat Samman and superstitions not required. Stop period shaming. Thank you for watching.